What's up, guys? It's Eventon here. I know it's been a while since my last video, and I said that the video prior, but it's been kind of busy in real life. And more recently, I've been getting back into EVE Online. I've heard that they've had a whole ton of updates planned from now all the way to the beginning, or I should say to the end of this year, including new ships, new story arc stuff, more kind of story or like narrative driven things that is happening in the world. Honestly, this is something I've been saying for a very long time. To be quite honest, like I appreciate and understand a lot of the stories that's been happening, that's been very player driven in EVE Online the last, since it started. But I've always found like the stories and the lore of the actual like EVE universe itself to be infinitely more interesting. So I'm really glad CCP is taking the step to kind of expand that a bit more. But one of the big things they want to change is faction warfare. And I guess with faction warfare comes with potentially new ships, and that's actually what we're going to be covering today. So these are all ships that are on the Singularity test server right now. I'm on there right now with my character. We're going to look at each of these ships, and again, I'm kind of going through this from the lens of someone that's been quite active in PvP these last couple of years, but hasn't played a lot recently. I'm going to try and give my best guesstimate as to like what roles some of these ships are trying to fill, or like maybe what they're good at. We're not going to get too granular with some of the fitting stuff, but we will be looking at like slots and things like that. But we're not going to be looking at like capacitor, or at least some of those things too closely. So yeah, I mean, there's a whole new line of ships, basically Navy ships that are going to be coming out for all of the empires. So we're going to get new battle cruisers as well as new kind of like exploration frigates, but they're more combat, available. So I'm not sure if this is supposed to be something that's supposed to contest the Astero. I mean, at the end of the day, the Astero is still in a class of its own. I mean, it can still fit a covert ops cloak. It can still tackle stuff and do very well. I mean, these ships can too, but they can't fit a covert ops cloak. So I don't think this is meant to be a direct competitor to the Astero at all, because they fulfill two very different roles. I do think on grid, maybe if these two ships were to face off, if something like the Heron Navy faced off against the Astero, I do think the Heron Navy would win. But when it comes to just being able to land a tackle and you get close to your enemy with a covert ops cloak and you can warp around and all that stuff, I do think it's much easier for the Astero over these ships. So I don't think these are fulfilling similar roles. So we'll go ahead and jump into it. And probably what we're going to do is start with the battle cruisers first, and then compare them to kind of like their T1 counterparts for the most part. So for here, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Prophecy Navy, as well as the Prophecy. We're going to just look at them pretty much head to head for the most part. I also made the text a little bit bigger, so hopefully you guys can see, or at least read what's going on. And that was actually another thing I noticed since I last logged in. The UI is very different. I know they've been trying to make updates to the UI. So far, I like it. It's just something to get used to. I love the fact that it has this show and ship tree, and there's also a compare tool, I believe, too. If you like pull something up, right click, you can show compare, and then you can actually compare both the Prophecy as well as the Prophecy Navy just side by side. And a cool tip, if you guys are trying to compare like two different modules and stuff like that, if you go to the, at least with this new UI, it's in the top right, but I believe in the old UI, it's in the top left. There's something that shows only show attributes that differ. That way you don't have to look through a million different attributes that are all the same. You're only looking at the stuff that is different. So, all right, cool little tutorial right there. So jumping into it, the Prophecy Navy issue, one of the first things you'll notice is that they definitely got a small nerf to the drone hit points as damage. So this thing is definitely going to be focusing more on obviously the energy turrets as well as the optimal range. So one thing I've noticed about this Prophecy, which is kind of weird, is that it has this bonus to ship armor hit points, which is very similar to the Augur Navy. If we look here, it has a 10% bonus to ship armor hit points as well. So what this is telling me is like you kind of want to just like brick tank this with a ton of plates, but that optimal range also tells me too that like this is like maybe a sniper ship. I'm not sure if this is something that is supposed to like fit pulse lasers and you can kind of project or at least lay down some damage as you're trying to approach a target. For the most part, so it's really hard to tell like what role this ship is trying to fulfill, because when I see something like double optimal range here as well as here, I mean, if you add those two together, that's a 75% bonus to optimal range, and that's quite far. I mean, you're almost doubling the distance of your lasers. And so again, it just seems weird that this kind of feels like a sniper boat, but at the same time, the armor hit points makes it so you want to kind of stack it with plates, so it benefits from that bonus as much as possible. So it's kind of cool. I do kind of like the duality of, hey, do you want to double down on the energy turrets? And really, we can actually just... Can I simulate it from here? No, I guess not. You can simulate the ship. I mean, this thing has 7 low slots, which is actually similar to the Augur Navy. So I mean, this thing has 7 low slots, so that's a lot of damage, modules you can put there in the low slots. And again, you have 5 hard points over, looks like 6 slots up here as well. So you have 1 utility high slot, probably for, who knows, obviously probably for like a command link or something like that. Usually armor in this case, because you are benefiting from a lot of those plates as well. So maybe like a armor resist link up there in the high slot. And yeah, I kind of like the flexibility of this. First off, the ship looks really cool. So I know it doesn't have the picture here, but if we look at the Prophecy, just the way it looks, and sorry if it's a little bit laggy, the way the Prophecy looks versus the Prophecy Navy, obviously the color is much darker. It does seem like it has like more jagged edges to just, I guess, make it look more threatening. More hard angles make something look more threatening, I guess, as well. So again, I do like the Prophecy issue, just not entirely sure what role it's trying to fulfill. Obviously, it got a nerf to its drone hit points. If we actually look at the attributes here side by side, the drone bandwidth is 50 here, but it's 75 for the Prophecy. So obviously the Prophecy is just meant to be this very bulky, high resist drone boat that could just take a whole bunch of beating and a lot of damage. I do believe they have the same, oh no, they don't have the same drone capacity. So this thing has 225 meters cubed. This has 125. So it seems like this is just going to run 5 medium drones, and it's just probably going to use it for utility, or at least for a little bit of extra damage. While this is just a straight up drone boat for the most part. Let's see here. There's a couple other things. I do actually like the fact that you can compare these side by side, because I actually really like the way that looks. I know I just said earlier I wasn't going to do this because it's just too much information. But if we look at the structure hit points, the shield, capacitor recharge rate, maximum lock range, hard points, just all this stuff. We can only look at 10 attributes. That's fine. So looking across here, the structure hit points is basically 50% more. So it's almost like across the board, it has 50% more structure hit points, 50% more armor, 50% more shields. It's pretty much just 50% across the board when it comes to all of its, pretty much like its defensive stats. Its shield recharge rate, I'm not sure. So I think the lower the number, the better. I don't know, it's been a while. But it does have a higher capacitor. So I do think the Prophecy's capacitor will recharge faster, but this one has a bigger capacity, so that it might, this is going to be a little bit harder to nuke out versus the other ship. Has 1 launcher hard point, but has 5 turret hard points in there. So I guess, like I said earlier, it has a utility high slot. Where's the lock range? Because that's one thing I wanted to see. So the lock range is a bit further. So instead of 50 kilometers, it's 65. So this is kind of telling me it's supposed to be like a sniper boat, but again, it gets such huge benefits to those armor hit points that it's like you almost want to slap 2, maybe even 3, large plates on there just to make use of that as much as possible. So I do think it's going to be able to fit 2 different roles, but obviously with the meta, it's going to probably start angling towards one or the other pretty aggressively. So, all right, so let's look at the other stuff. I know we looked at that ship for quite a while. Now, the next one we have is the Ferox Navy, as well as the Ferox Navy issue. Minimize those. We can actually close the Prophecy. I know we're kind of juggling quite a few menus here. So the traits. So shield booster activation cost. So this is like the Cyclone or some other ships. I believe the Drake Navy just doesn't, actually lost it. The normal Drake has a resist bonus. The Drake Navy doesn't. But this shield booster activation cost, as well as this increased hybrid damage, as well as tracking speed. So this one has extra optimal range. So this is telling me obviously the Ferox is used very well as like a sniper boat, long range, high damage. But this has tracking speed, and it still has that optimal range, which is obviously current with pretty much every battle cruiser, as well as the command burst module and all that stuff. But man, that shield booster activation, as well as the shield booster power and CPU requirements, this is telling me that this thing is meant to be a brawler. And I do think the extra tracking speed is going to help it hit smaller ships, or maybe, I don't want to say you can't get away without a web, but I mean, I feel like you should always use a web with a brawly ship like this for the most part. But yeah, I mean, this thing seems like it's meant to be a pretty brawly ship. I'm just not exactly sure what that extra tracking speed is supposed to be. I guess you get in close. I mean, the higher tracking you have, typically the higher chance you have of like wrecking shots and things like that. Again, so I might be off with some of this information. Like I said, I haven't PvP'd in a long time. I could be saying some things that are wrong. But if we look just side by side, the structure hit points, again, 50% higher. If we look at the armor hit points, again, it's pretty much 50% higher. Shield capacity is 50% higher pretty much across the board. So, man, dude, the Ferox Navy issue is honestly a scary looking ship when I'm looking at it like this, where it gets a shield boost bonus. It wants to be in close range. Let's see how many turret hard points it has. has 6 turret hard points. It looks like it has 7 high slots. So again, you're probably going to be running either like a skirm link or a shield link up here in the high slot. Plenty of low slots. That's the nice thing about shield ships is like typically you can literally just put like a nano, a damage control, and like 2 damage slots, or even just 3 ballistic controls down in the low slot, just to really push as much damage as possible, and a lot of mid slots to play with. And I do think just the fact that 2 of those slots is going to be used for what? Micro warp drive, web, scram. That only leaves you 4 slots for basically defensive capability. So, you know, one's probably going to be a cap injector because you are going to be using hybrid turrets here. So probably a cap injector or cap battery. And then that's pretty much where the shield boost bonus is going to be coming in pretty clutch, because again, you're pretty much limited in those mid slots when it comes to being able to have survivability. But man, I've actually never seen that bonus before. Shield boost power and CPU requirements got reduced. Did they do that for like the Cyclone? Like, did other ships also receive that bonus that get like a shield boost bonus? No, it doesn't seem like that's the case. I'm trying to think if there's another ship that has a similar bonus like that. I know the Brutix does, but it's for armor ripper amount. But that's a really unique bonus that the Ferox Navy has, that reduced power and CPU requirements, meaning I mean, once you get that to level 5, I mean, that's 37.5%, I think, reduction in power and CPU. So you can pretty much possibly fit an XL shield booster on there. Again, I haven't really played with a lot of the fits. Maybe that'll be another video if you guys want to check that out. Me actually playing with fits on some of these ships just to see how crazy these fits can be. So I think that's it for the Ferox. Let's go ahead and open up here for the Myrmidon Navy issue, as well as the Myrmidon. So one thing I've kind of noticed both between these battle cruisers as well as these like new Navy frigates that are coming out, it definitely seems like one is very, very combat heavy. And I do think the Ferox Navy issue is probably the best one when it comes to just combat. If it gets in the range that it wants to, it's just going to absolutely dominate. This Myrmidon one has a very unique trait. I'm just not sure if it's going to fully pay off with something like this. So you see it has the drone hit points, all that stuff is the same, armor repair amount is the same. Again, I don't know why the Ferox has the bonus to reduce CPU and power grid. I guess it's just because the way the fitting works, and just because it's kind of crammed for mid slots for the most part on the shield ship. I guess that's why they're giving it a break. Hold on. And then we have the stasis Weberfire drone factor of velocity decrease. So I remember making a video probably a couple months ago talking about the E-War drones, how kind of a lot of them are very underwhelming, except for the ECM drones, which absolutely like just dominate the scene when it comes to E-War drones. Occasionally you might see neuting drones, maybe webbing drones, but you'll never see target painting drones. You'll never see damp drones. Same thing with like target disruption drones. You'll never see that stuff. So one of the big issues with the Weberfire drones, like I said before, is that they're like 50% slower. I don't know if they're that much slower, but they're definitely slower than all the other E-War drones. So all the other E-War drones have like have the same speed, but for some reason the web drone is the slowest. So I do think that 12.5 micro warp drive velocity is going to help a bit, but it just feels weird that you're going to be using Weberfire drones, but you're missing out on that drone damage. As we can even read here in the description, it says this webification drone technology combined with an upgraded Myrmidon proved potent against a combination of drones being able to snare distant targets, allowing this spiked column of destruction to slowly approach it, fall upon spray. So I guess the concept is, if there is something pretty far away, you release these drones, they slow it down, and then you're able to approach it. But again, just because the web drones are the slowest, like E-War drones of any of them, I feel like it's going to really struggle to catch up with their targets, even with that 12.5% micro warp drive velocity for the most part. What I would like to see this possibly get instead is just extra scram range, just because this thing is not going to be able to fight the Ferox Navy like one-on-one, like face-to-face. I mean, that thing just has more damage, higher damage, like the hybrid turrets versus projectile. Oh no, this has hybrid as well. So what I'm seeing this thing being is that damage, velocity decrease, and because of the optimal fall off range, maybe this could be somewhat of like a scram kiter of sorts. I would like to see this, and having extra scram range is very kind of in form with the Galente anyway. If you look at some of these ships, the Arazu as well as the Lachesis, they all have extra warp scram range and like disruptor range. Same thing with the Mollis, that has a bonus to extra like scram range as well. So that's pretty much like what the Galente is known for, is just bonuses to like scram and like disruptor range. So I would like to see that kind of get replaced here. I really want CCP to keep exploring this web of fire drone or kind of like e-war drone bonuses. I still think that e-war drones should get a bonus relating to their faction. So like the Minotaur should get bonuses, like web drone bonuses, because that's what they're known for, is like webs. Same thing with newts. If you're using a Mars ship, they should get a small bonus to neuting drones, things like that. But in this case, I just don't see this completely working out. Again, haven't tested it, haven't played with this at all whatsoever. One interesting thing about the Myrmidon Navy issue, except for the fact that it actually looks pretty cool. I really like the look of it compared to the Myrmidon. It has some small features, but again, just more hard angles. The cool, like, I guess the grassland camo looks really cool. Is that this one actually has two utility slots, which is another reason why I do think I mean, this thing only has 4 hard points, while the Ferox Navy had 6 hard points, remember? So it's like the Ferox has 50% more guns. I just see this thing getting absolutely dunked by the Ferox Navy for the most part. So, but the 2 utility slots is pretty nice. So maybe you can fit, you know, a skirm link and an armor link, maybe double armor, double skirm, 1 link plus a newt, maybe double newt. I mean, there's a whole lot of things you can do here. And I do like the fact that it has the 5 mid slots and 6 lows. So, it's going to be kind of interesting because like this thing wants to get close to its targets unless it also has hybrid guns. And again, because this thing only has like 4 hard points when it comes to guns, I feel like it's just going to get dunked by anything else that wants to get close to. So again, I think this thing should probably get like a scram bonus, like extra range, maybe 5%, maybe like a 10% scram range bonus. So maybe now you're scramming out to 15, 16 kilometers instead of just the usual 10. And now it's actually benefiting because it's actually able to hold its range at 12 or 13 and kind of keep their target at bay instead of just basically just face tanking and just planting its face into the other target, which again, with only 4 turret hard points, I mean, the drone bonus is nice, but again, you have to like call out the drones, it slows it down. Then once you get close enough to scram and web it, then you have to recall your drones, shoot out a whole nother fleet of drones to start doing damage. It's just going to take too long, in my opinion. So Myrmidon Navy, I like the idea. I really hope CCP keeps exploring this like e-war drone bonus thing that they have going on here. But I think with the Myrmidon, I'm just not feeling it. I feel like just other ships that are going to want to get close. Like I honestly think like the Brutix would probably do better than the Myrmidon Navy issue. Like if these two faced off head to head, I feel like the Brutix would actually win, which would just feel really, really bad considering that's the like the Navy version of another battle cruiser in the same empire. So this one, the Cyclone Fleet issue, man. Cyclone, there's a lot of people that really enjoy the Cyclone, including myself. I know it's a ship that we used to use all the time in our corporation back in the day. We still use it occasionally for the most part. So if we're looking at here, I feel like this bonus is really weird. A 9% bonus, the heavy missile and heavy assault missile like rate of fire. 9% just feels weird. I don't know why it's just not 10. Explosion velocity. Reduction to ship signature radius. So interesting. So this, honestly, this is the ship I probably looked at the least. I looked at the other ships way more. They reduced sign radius. Not sure how much that's going to benefit it. I mean, it's going to probably make it smaller, maybe not as small as like a cruiser, but it's definitely going to make you harder to hit. But with the rate of fire and explosion velocity, this thing is telling me it's meant to probably take down smaller ships, so cruisers, destroyers, probably even with heavy missile and heavy assault missiles. Like you're still just not going to hit frigates very well, even with explosion velocity bonus. It's still just not going to work out very well. So this is probably going to be very, very effective at shutting down other cruisers and destroyers. That's what it seems like it's meant to do, because again, it's not getting, it's getting a bonus to the rate of fire, but it's not just getting a bonus to like the raw damage output for the most part. So let's go ahead and take a look here. Oh no, that's just showing us I guess we could take a look. Looks pretty cool. I mean, it looks like your typical Cyclone. So the ship tree here. So it has 6 hard points, which I believe is the same as the Cyclone. I think the normal Cyclone actually has 5 hard points and 2 utility high slots. Yeah, so 5 hard points, 2 utility high slots, 5 mids, 5 lows. So this is probably gonna have the same thing. Sorry if it's a bit laggy. I mean, it is CC server at the end of the day. So yeah, 5 mids, 5 lows, except 8 highs, and now we have 2 utility high slots again. The usual stuff. So 2 links, or maybe 2 links, or you can do a newt and a link, whatever you want to do for the most part. So again, I'm not exactly sure what role this is trying to fill. Again, I think this is meant to take down other ships, but again, it doesn't have like a range bonus either, because I believe that's the bonus that the Cyclone got. No, it has a rate of fire and a shield boost amount. This one has a rate of fire as well as a explosion velocity bonus. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure how well this is going to play out. I do think just raw stat wise, if we're looking at some of these ships, just like raw stats, like these are very good. I do feel like initially these ships are just going to be very strong, just stat stick wise, like just the raw stats of like their defensive capability. It's just going to make them very, very strong. But other than that, I'm just not sure how well they're going to be able to perform. Let's go ahead and pull these up. Velocity, high slots, CPU, launcher hard points. Let's go ahead and do as much stuff as we can. And that's pretty much it between these two. So again, structure hit points, armor hit points, shield capacity is pretty much all like 50% more for the most part. Velocity is a tiny bit faster. High slots, a little bit more CPU. Launcher hard points, a little bit more power grid. So yeah, it just seems like it's just a stat stick upgrade, which I'm not a huge fan of. It's actually kind of boring. I kind of wish more ships had something like the, you know, you were a drone bonus, or maybe even like the MR, where it's just like you just get a flat bonus to extra ship armor hit points, which kind of makes you fit the ship a bit differently. And I guess the extra range is pretty nice on there as well. So yeah, not much to really say about the Cyclone Navy issue. If, you know, looking at these two, I think I would still rather fly the Cyclone. Obviously, the shield booster amount is much higher. This has higher raw, like EHP, but all right, let's go ahead and move on to the frigates. Let's go ahead and start here. Actually, I'm going to start with the first frigate, which I think is going to absolutely dunk everything for the most part. You know, it's not as strong as the Hookbill, but I think considering what it is supposed to do, and I think comparing these to like their exploration counterparts just isn't fair. So we're just going to like look at the raw stats and the damage and stuff it can do. So first things first, that's the Griffin Navy. That's not what I want. Why do I keep selecting the Griffin Navy? It's the Heron Navy. There we go. Heron Navy, first off, core bonus scanner. So all of these new frigates are meant to be exploration ships that could, they're pretty much exploration frigates with guns on them. You know, sometimes they get a missile bonus, sometimes they get a turret bonus, a drone bonus, but that's essentially what they're doing. I think these things are meant to at least be able to stand their ground and either kill other exploration frigates, or at least maybe make the Astero think twice before engaging this, because you can fit some of these ships pretty nasty. And I do think the Heron Navy is the one that is going to be able to be fit the nastiest. The Heron is also just a notoriously memeable ship when it comes to just fitting it with like rockets and all kinds of like, I've seen Herons fit with like 3 medium XL, and 3 medium ASBs and like the mid slots, and just like crazy fits that I've seen. And so I do think the Heron Navy is just going to take that and turn it up to 100 for the most part. Because as you saw here, and I think I just kind of overlooked it a little bit too quickly, that light missile and rocket bonus damage, 30% per level. So that's 150% at max level. So let's just say, you know, just for the sake of simplicity, each of these missile launchers are doing 100 damage each. That goes from 200 all the way up to 500, which is a ton of damage. And on top of that, it has 2 utility slots, which most of the time is probably going to be a probe launcher and a cloak, or maybe a probe launcher and like a newt, something like that. Mid slots, you know, you could fit this up straight up for combat, and then I think it would do perfectly fine. Like, you don't, even if you didn't want to fit a cloak and like a probe launcher, you could fit this like double newt, double rockets, and then you can do like, you know, again, medium ASBs, all kinds of stuff. You can do all kinds of stuff with this. Just the raw damage output is pretty crazy with this Heron. And if you compare that damage bonus to some of the other ones that we're going to look at, it's just not even close. If the Heron Navy, I think, legitimately fought the other 3 exploration ships, like, oh, I want to say at the same time, but if you just sent them one after another, I think the Heron Navy would still win. Next one is the Magnate Navy issue. Look at the bonuses on this. So same thing, except again, you know, we're looking at this, the Heron gets a 30% bonus. This only gets a 20% bonus. And on top of that, again, I haven't really paid that close attention to like the capacitor and stuff. Let's actually take a look at the capacitor of the Heron, like the Heron Navy. Okay, so the Heron Navy has like 300 capacitor. It makes sense because this thing is going to be fit with lasers. The Magnate Navy issue obviously should have a much higher capacitor because it's fit with lasers. Only one utility high slot, so again, a single probe launcher. You can fit a cloak, but again, now you're sacrificing a turret slot. 5 lows is really nice, so I guess you could tank this out. You could put some like plates on there and stuff, but again, that makes you slower. And if a Heron has light missiles, like it's just going to be able to shoot you from like 30 kilometers plus, and like you can't even get close. The 3 mid slots, it does kind of suck. So if you wanted to explore and fight, you would have to do what, like a relic analyzer, a marker warp drive, and a scram, or like, you know, a mid slot. I mean, you have to fit a data or relic analyzer, and then a marker warp drive, and then a scram, and that's it. So you have no web to help apply with the lasers. It seems a bit weird. I mean, you could really tank this, like really, really hard. There's going to be some super, super tanky magnates, but again, no drone bay on this one. That's actually something I forgot to say for the Heron Navy, that there's no drone bay on that as well. So they kind of took the drones off all of these exploration like Navy versions, except for the Galente one, I believe. So this one's going to be pretty interesting. It's going to really suck on the capacitor because, again, you know, marker warp drive, web, scram, if you want to fit this up with just straight combat, but like that doesn't leave a lot of room for like what, a cap injector or something like that. I guess low slots you'd fit, like it just seems weird. So again, I haven't really played with the fits at all. Maybe once I do start playing with the fits, I can figure something out. Again, if that is a video if you guys want to see in the future, let me know. Now on to the Imicus. So the Imicus one I think is pretty interesting. It actually has drones, unlike the other ships. This one actually has 2 bonuses. So this actually has a small hybrid turret damage, 75% or 7.5%. So that's 37.5, I think, at max level, and then 10% drone bonus to hit points and tracking speed. So again, not more damage. Remember, so it's just more hit points and more tracking speed. So it's kind of the same thing with the Astero, right? The Astero actually doesn't get a bonus to like drone damage. I feel like a lot of people have that misconception. It just has more hit points, and that's it. So same thing here. Again, like if this thing just faced off against a Heron, I just don't see it succeeding because, again, the Heron is just going to be pushing out so much more damage. 2 utility high slots, 5 mids to play with, which is very friendly for PvP. 2 lows that you can fit with just double damage, you know, a damage control and a nano, like whatever you want to do with the ship. If we look at the slot layout for this, 4 and 4 is, you know, nicely balanced, but again, only one utility high with 2 turret slots. Again, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to be fit out, but I mean, it has a pretty big drone bay, you know, 50 meters, 50 meters cubed, and you can have four light drones out at the same time, which isn't bad when it comes to damage. So I'm not exactly sure how you'd be playing this. Obviously, it'd be, if you're fighting against a Heron Navy and it's fit rockets, obviously you want to stay out of range of it or scram kite it in some way. And if it has light missile, you just want to face plant because it's just going to outrange you anyway. I'm not exactly sure how this is going to fit. I'm just kind of just comparing these ships to each other and not so much just other random ships that you could run into. But I think just the raw damage output, I do think the Imicus Navy issue has the lowest damage output just because you know, the hybrid turrets, I guess I should say, I'm kind of undermining the 4 light drones. I guess I'm focusing too much on the fact that they don't have a drone damage bonus, but I think they'll do fine and hold their own. But I do think it's definitely not as weak as this guy, the Probe Fleet Navy issue, or the Probe Fleet issue. This, it's a pretty sorry ship. I mean, again, you look at the Heron Navy issue, 30% damage per level. This one gets 12.5%. This doesn't even have half the bonus that the Heron Navy issue has. And again, has the, you know, core scanner, pro bonus, all that stuff. I will say this is faster than the other ships. I do think all the ships that I've seen have their speed, at least with my skills. Let's go ahead and take a look here. I'm just talking on-grid speed here. Again, sorry for the lag here. Look at the Caldari, compare. I do think, of course, no surprise, the Mimitar ship has the fastest on-grid speed, because that's the main thing I want to look at. I guess we'll look at the inertial modifier. Where is the speed? There it is. Yeah, so the Probe Fleet issue is 385. The Magnate is actually the next fastest at 350. Kind of interesting how the Amar ship is the second fastest, followed by the Imicus and the oh, I accidentally did Griffin. don't know why I keep selecting Griffin on accident. Navy issue on here. Compare here. I know it's a bit of a longer video, guys, but hang with me. Yeah, so this is 345. So these two are the slowest. I mean, these all pretty much have the exact same speed for the most part, except for the probe fleet issue. So that is one benefit that the probe fleet has, is that, again, it is the fastest one on grid. I do think this pilot skill involved, maybe the probe fleet could potentially beat everything but the Heron Navy issue and just a straight up fight like 1v1 for the most part. Let's go back to here. Thought I had a simulated thing here. There it is. One nice thing about the probe fleet is that it does have 2 utility high slots, and because it uses projectile weapons, I guess you could use auto cannons and like double newt, and you just hope you newt them out before they get away or newt you out. This one is, yeah, so it's 4 mids, 3 lows. Again, just the raw damage output, no drones either, so it can't like push extra damage that way either. This one by far and away has the lowest damage output of all the ships, but at the same time I do think is the fastest, so this could have like the highest pilot skill like sailing. But again, I think just the Heron Fleet issue is just straight up better in a lot of ways. It's not as fast, but I do think that one is much better. So I do think the role that these fleet issue ships, I guess it's probably better if I just pull up the screen. I do think the role that some of these frigate like fleet issue and navy issue ships are trying to fulfill is that it's supposed to be able to fight back. I do think some of these actually have a kind of a standing chance against the Astero, mostly the Heron Navy issue, maybe the Magnate, but I think the other two probably not. I think it's just going to lose to an Astero straight up, but the Heron Navy issue could be quite a surprise with a lot of these ships. And again, these can be fit as like fast tackle or maybe like some light screening and stuff like that for the most part, but I just don't see it. I think it's mostly just for people that want to explore and at least have some capability fighting back. And again, with the new faction warfare stuff coming out, I do think these are the perfect ships. I do think the new novice plexes that are going to be coming out for faction warfare, from what I've heard, is going to mostly be like T1 ships and then faction like navy ships like these ships. So no more pirate ships, so no more worms or dramiels just like dunking people in like novice plexes or anything like that anymore. It's just probably just going to be T1 ships as well as these ships. They're going to be duking it out. And these battle cruisers, again, if I had to choose, I think the Heron Navy issue is the best, and followed by the Ferox Navy one. Just raw damage output wise, I think those two are the best. I do think the Myrmidon Navy issue is pretty interesting and unique, and I hope CCP keeps exploring this aspect of like buffing E-War drones and not having everyone just run ECM, make stasis whipper fire drones worth it, make sensor dampening drones worth it. Same thing with target disruption, all those drones worth it, because right now the only ones that are good are just the ECMs. Yeah, Cyclone Fleet, kind of boring, not much to it, just a raw stat upgrade. Same thing with the Prophecy Navy issue. Kind of confusing what it's trying to do. It has the extra optimal range in conjunction with the other optimal range for the roll bonus. So it's like, all right, does it want to be like a snipey ship or not? It's pretty hard to tell. And there's the drone bonus. Drone bonus got a nerf, extra armor hit points. Makes it when you want to put plates on it, but again, that's going to make it slower. So not exactly sure what this ship is trying to do. If you guys do know, down in the comments below, let me know. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will be making more videos here in the near future. I've just been kind of busy with real life and work and all that kind of stuff, but I do want to keep making content. And now that, you know, CCP and EVE Online is going to have more content coming up around the corner, I'll be more than happy to cover it with you guys. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys take care, and I'll catch you guys next time.